Hey everybody, you are listening to the Vocal Advancement Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom, and we are joined by Heather today.
Shemai.
Shemai to you too. Where in the world are we again?
Well, I'm being Welsh today.
Ah, very nice.
I actually went to a family party not that long ago. I say it's my husband's family, but they are Welsh. And they started singing Happy Birthday. It was somebody's birthday. It was a 50th birthday party. They started singing Happy Birthday in Welsh. And I was like, I was quite baffled. I didn't know what to do. It's the only time I've ever been unable to join in singing Happy Birthday at someone's party.
I bet that was complicated to try.
Was. Should have seen my eldest daughter was trying her best to join in. Just kind of making random sounds with her mouth. Yeah.
Lots of huffs and
all sorts. It was very impressive.
It's a beautiful sounding language, but I find my brain's just like I can't make some of those noises.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those languages. I mean, they're very fiercely defensive of their language in Wales. They want to make sure that it remains alive. You know, there's lots of schools that will only teach in Welsh and not English. And all of the schools have to learn Welsh, I think, regardless of whether you're English speaking at home or not.
Well, it's understandable though. It's a very melodic language. I like that, to think of it like that.
There's a lot of singers in Wales.
Lots of good singers.
Lots of good singers in Wales, yeah. But there we go.
I know. So how's things since our last episode? What's going on in Heather's world?
Oh, goodness me. I am in the throes of the final module of my master's that I'm doing at the moment. So my life is consumed with statistical analysis, which is really not the sort of thing that I normally want to spend my spare time doing. But it's...
That sounds...
Yeah. Figuring out what a standard deviation is and what an ANOVA test is. All these fun terms.
I think I'll skip that.
It's one of those things that is incredibly difficult to wrap your head around, but once you've got it, you feel quite proud of yourself for understanding just even the tiniest little thing. So yeah, that is my life at the moment, is whenever I'm not in work, I am working on my research instead. Exactly. That's it. My spare time is all about doing more work. I like to go and hang out in Costa for 5 hours flat. And
Caffeinate.
Yes, that's it. Get a couple of coffees in me and just get on with it. Yeah.
But not long to go, though.
No, not long to go. I can see the end. I can see the finishing line. And considering this has been practically a 4-year journey, that's quite encouraging that I can see the finishing line now.
That's good. And then it'll finish and you'll be like, oh, what do I do with my time now?
I know. There's already some people who are on the course with me who are looking into doing a PhD, and I'm like, I don't think I could cope.
Oh, and that takes much longer, doesn't it?
Well, that's a much longer journey, especially when you're trying to do it part-time alongside a full-time job. Yeah, that's a lot longer.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, good luck to them doing that. But that shan't be me.
Yeah, that's
certainly not
quite
immediately.
An undertaking.
maybe when I retire, I might look into doing a PhD. Yeah,
I can't imagine that. Because it's just, isn't the thesis you have to write hundreds of thousands of words or something?
It's mega. Yeah.
It's not for Tom.
It's it's a big undertaking. Yeah.
That's like a big book, like a very long book.
And a lot of people do go on to take their PhD research and turn it into some kind of a book afterwards, because why wouldn't you when you put all that work into it?
Well, exactly.
Might as well share it with the world. But yeah, it's something that you don't take on lightly, that's for sure.
And what are you actually researching? I'm not sure we've talked about this before, have we?
So my current research is all on gestures. And maybe we should do another episode one day talking just about that, because if I start on it now, I will go on for about 3 hours straight and bore you all to death. But yeah, looking into the effects of using gestures when you teach singing effectively is what I'm researching at the moment. So it is interesting. and I now have statistical analysis that will back up what I want to say about it.
Ooh. Yeah, I think that would be good to have a chat about that, because I think that I saw an interesting video about that the other day about using gestures to help you with clean runs.
Yes.
So, yeah.
They can be used in so many different ways and for so many different reasons.
That's definitely a video episode.
So there we go. We'll save that. We'll do a whole episode, and I can bore you with everything I know about that topic now.
And I can give you gestures to analyze.
You can give me gestures, not rude ones. I hope, Tom.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But who have we got on today's episode, Tom?
Well, we are having a chat today with Helen Woodley, who's from the UK, and Helen's been doing research into dancers and singing. And this was really another really interesting conversation about the topic. It's a fascinating topic. Like, we think singers have lots of strange quirks, but dancers that have to sing or sing have just as many.
Absolutely.
If not more.
And I mean, this is a topic close to your heart, isn't it, Tom? Because some people might not know this, but you are a bit of a dancer yourself, aren't you, Tom?
I do. I dance, darling. I do dance. Yes.
You weren't a ballerina, though, were you?
No. I was an Irish dancer, so river dance, style dance. But I did that because I was too scared to sing. I didn't think I could sing, so I danced instead. So I fit very nicely into the topic of today's conversation on the podcast. Like, could be a case study for her research.
You totally could.
I could.
I love it.
But it was very interesting. Even if you aren't a dancer with that kind of background, it's still really interesting, especially if you work with people.
Well, it is, because as I said in the interview here, we talked about, I have had dancers in for lessons before, and they are a different breed of voice student, and Helen has some really fascinating insights as to why that might be.
Yeah.
Let's go listen to what Helen has to say.
So Helen, welcome to our podcast, and thank you for joining us today. And we're really looking forward to getting to know a bit more about your topic. But I want to kind of genuinely give you a nice, easy question to get started.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the world of singing, or how you got started on your singing journey.
Well, it was about 3 million years ago. Well, that's how far long ago it seems. I started off, as quite a few people do, at the local dance school. And this is the way I actually found out I could sing was that when I was 11, I was given a song and dance for a festival piece. And I went in and sang, and my dance teacher just sat there with her mouth open and was like, I didn't know you could sing. I was like, can I sing? There you go. And then at 16, I went to Lane Theatre Arts and trained on the musical theatre course. And that's when I had my first singing lessons. So I am pretty much the demographic that I teach. People who want to go to a vocational college but have had no singing training.
So how did that hit you then when you did go to Lane and suddenly you were having to do regular singing training, I
loved it. I absolutely loved it, because the big shock for me when I got there was finding out that my dancing wasn't as good as it had seemed to be. It became very obvious very quickly that they'd taken me as a singer, not as a dancer, which was just bizarre. Because
interesting.
But you just kind of think, okay, I'm going for this, and then they didn't help. They'd made a mistake and actually put me on the dancers course. I was on the dancers course for 2 weeks before they put me onto the musical theatre course, which added to my trauma. But once I was on the musical theatre course, I was happy. And I think pretty much the people that were on the musical theatre course wanted to be on it. It's the people generally, because back in those days, you were either musical theatre or you were dance. And those that did dance didn't really sing. Whereas now, everybody does everything to varying degrees. And I think that's probably the difference. That those who didn't want to sing could probably get away with it all those years ago, but now they can't.
So why do you think that's changed?
I think it's an industry need, to be honest with you. I mean, it was great for me when I went out into the big wide world to work, because what happened back then was we had all our dance classes, and then so we had the same dance classes everybody else had, and then we would be there till 8 o'clock at night doing singing and drama on top of everything else. So it meant that when I went out into the big wide world, I knew if I got through, if I was going for a singing job, because I was always a singer-dancer or a dancer-singer, I knew that if I got through the dance round, I was fine. And I also kind of knew that if I got through the singing round, I was fine, if they were looking for a singer who could dance.
Right.
And back in those days, Lane was pretty much the only place that taught their singers to dance.
Wow.
So it was brilliant for me. But now, of course, the business, you need to be triple threat. Well, you don't need to be, but if you want to maximise your earning potential and your longevity, you need to be able to do all three.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're just training to be a dancer and you don't learn all those other things, you are quite limited to.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go to the Royal Ballet,
really?
yeah, if you want to go to the, you're at the Royal Ballet, or you do just want to do something like contemporary, or people that do commercial and stuff don't necessarily need to be able to sing. But a lot of these kids are going on musical theatre courses and not wanting to sing. And to me, it's not musical theatre if you don't sing. The same as it's not musical theatre if you don't dance. The same as it's not musical theatre if you don't act. That's the way I look at it.
That is kind of strange, is it? Going on a musical theatre course and not singing, then.
I know.
Better just doing an acting course.
I know. I think with a lot of them, in fairness, they're down as musical theatre, but it's musical theatre with dance. So you will get the people that want to predominantly dance. But it does still limit what they can do. You go and work on a cruise ship, you're probably going to need to be able to sing with the chorus. If you want to go into the West End, whether you want to be, in the chorus or not, you've at least got to be able to hold a tune. You may not be playing the lead in that, but, you need to be able to hold a tune to be in the chorus.
So then a lot of your work is with those younger singers who are looking to go into that sort of training, and they do come from a dance background. So what sort of challenges do you meet with them when you kind of suggest to them that they might have to be also a singer?
Oh, well, there you go. It often depends how old they are and how long they've been dancing. I went through a period during COVID I came back, but I lived in Italy for 15 years, and I worked at a brilliant school there, and we had a lot of kids that came over to the UK and auditioned and got into vocational schools, but they'd come to me at 15 never having sung. And what I always say to teachers is we need to get them to sing sooner, because you get them to 15, they dance at a really high level, and then you're basically asking them to sing, and they sing like they're at a preparatory grade. That's what they think. Okay, I'm a brilliant singer, a brilliant dancer, I can't sing, because they haven't had any training, and you're expecting them to go to an audition with no training. I mean, I got quite good at getting them to fake their way through a song or two, but there's only so much. I mean, I would say the shortest I've had was 2 weeks. This person and I had to teach them to sing in English as well. So
wow.
And they had to do a monologue. I got quite good at that. I used to write everything for them as if it was in Italian. So for them, so they could get the pronunciation. It's one of my strange skills. So if I was going to write what, I would write UOT, because that's how they'd say it, what. So that's what I do. And then when I did some of my research, I was looking into how these kids could do better once they go to college. And the main thing that came up from ex-students, was that they wish they'd been prepared more. I now get them, when I came back here, I had one boy came to me at the age of 12, I can't sing. They always say that, I can't sing. And I'm like, yeah, right, sure you can't. And within 2 weeks, I had him singing. And everybody thinks I'm amazing. I'm not. I just tell them they can do it. It's as simple as that. They just have to believe they can do it. I mean, there is obviously, you need to manage their expectations, especially at the beginning. But, you know, they're telling me they can't do anything. It's like, well, you've just sung that in tune. What's the issue? Yeah, but it wasn't very loud. Yeah, but we can do that. You know, when you first did dance, could you do a Grant Batman with your leg up there? No, you couldn't. And it's like everything else, you've got to work with it. So a lot of it is just telling them that they can.
So why do you think they have decided that they can't already?
Oh, there's so many reasons behind that, as I discovered. You get the whole, like I was saying about the comparisons, so that's dimensional comparison, and people will often do that. There is a higher, statistically, I've actually checked this one, there is a higher incidence of perfectionism amongst dancers. That's my big thing at the moment, perfectionism. I'm a perfectionist. Maladaptive perfectionism. So there are lots of things that go with that as well. So they compare it to their dance, so they can't do that. There's the whole atmosphere of dance as well, isn't there? That it's very much, on the whole, not everywhere, but there's a lot of talent versus effort. You know, if you're a great dancer, you get all the, what's the word, plaudits, I guess it is, isn't it? You know, all the praise and everything. And so if when they come and they can't sing, they can't see the point of the effort. There's also the thing of, it's not dance, so why would I bother? They don't value singing. And you know, the whole motivational thing, setting goals, it's all so closely interwoven, and this whole identity, I am a dancer. You know, we all do it. I'm a dancer. But the strange thing is, you'll get somebody like me, and although I would consider myself more of a singer, psychologically I'm more of a dancer, because that's what I did for the first, I started dancing when I was 3. So until I had 13 years of really only being a dancer. And I know people that and we're in this strange world. It's great when you want to do something like I do, because you understand the psyche behind it. But if I'm in a group of singers, I'm the dancer, and if I'm in a group of dancers, I'm the singer. So it's all a bit, but a lot of it does come down to those maladaptive perfectionist traits I've discovered.
So talk to us a little bit about that then. So when you say maladaptive perfectionism, what is the difference between that and any other type of perfectionism?
Well, this is it, because I'm fairly sure that if someone says to you, you're a perfectionist, you think, oh, that's bad. A lot of people think, oh, yeah, that's bad.
I don't know, I take it as a compliment that think that I'm
no,
trying my best at things.
Heather, you do. I asked a group of dancers, 6 dance students, is perfectionism good or bad? And they all went bad.
Okay, interesting.
So there we go. You see, we've already got that. And there is good and bad. Well, there's 2 schools of thought here. There is the school of thought that there's good and bad perfectionism, which is adaptive and maladaptive. So that basically means you are a perfectionist in the sense that you strive to do things really well. Mm-hmm. Or there is the maladaptive perfectionism, that's me, by the way, where you get really caught up in things. You know, you set yourselves these really high standards, and the thing is, you never reach them, because when you do reach them, you think, well, that can't have been any good, it can't have been high enough, so you keep setting more and more high standards. And then, of course, there are the avoidant behaviours, because what unfortunately often, when you're talking maladaptive perfectionism, are all these little things that you do to get out of doing things, like avoidance. I'm always at the last minute, because I will spend 4 months obsessing over one little thing, and that is because it lets me avoid doing what I actually should be doing. Yeah, I'm really. I was loving.
I think we're kindred spirits in
that. I managed to do a lit review last weekend, which I've been trying to do for 3 months. It's that kind of thing, avoiding situations. This is ultimately what cost me my performing career, because I couldn't deal with because I was always so sure that I was going to go into an audition and mess up that I just in the end just stopped avoiding auditions. And it's very, very common, that kind of thing. And it can lead to bigger problems like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, all that kind of thing. I've just realised I've gone off on a tangent, really, haven't I? I was going to say, well, that there are other people that believe that all perfectionism is bad. And then because good perfectionism is called something else. They'll all have a name for it. I found one, I think it's excellent. I can't remember it off the top of my head, whether it's excellentism or excellencism. I think it was excellentism, which is a term coined by Gaudreau. And basically he says, if you're striving to do well, it's because you're striving to be excellent. You're not striving to be perfect. So, you're not actually a perfectionist. You're trying to have excellence, trying to be excellent. But I found that at present, because I'm looking into using acceptance and commitment coaching for it, all the literature I say all the literature, what bit of literature there is it all talks about this maladaptive perfectionism.
Okay. And so dancers then are particularly prone to developing this then?
It would appear so, yes. There was a study done in Australia by a guy called Curtis, I think it was 2016, and he found that musical theatre vocational students have higher incidences of perfectionism or maladaptive perfectionism than the general public, and then within those, dancers are more prone to it than either singers or actors.
Wow.
And does that come from like learned behaviour from their circumstances, or is it something in the industry?
There's kind of, to be fair, I haven't actually got to the bottom of that one, because there's this conundrum. It's kind of the chicken and egg thing. Are dancers drawn towards dance because they're perfectionists, or do they become perfectionists because they dance? And there are all kinds of theories about it, as I say, because you have this the motivational climate quite often, though, is you are asked to master things, but at the end of the day, if somebody can do a triple pirouette straight off, they will be the one that probably gets the praise. There's also this whole thing of socially prescribed perfectionism, which comes down to the amount of evaluation. Because yes, everybody is evaluated, and you can look at things like competitions, you can look at things like exams, because all dancers do exams, or when I say all, pretty much they all will do exams, they'll do competitions. But it's also that thing of when you're in the class, there's a mirror. The mirror's there for a reason, and that is that you need to evaluate yourself. Your peers will be evaluating you, your teacher will be evaluating you, and it is this constant evaluation. It's interesting that when I've been looking into literature about it, that despite the fact that dance is an art, most dance psychology work is an offshoot of sports psychology, because the mindset is more similar. There is obviously the creative aspect, and that you can get that from other areas, but a lot of it does come from sport.
Wow. So where do you start then with somebody like that, if they're walking into your studio? It's really, really difficult, I think. And I think just looking at it from my point of view is because I teach dance as well, and in the schools I teach both dance and singing. So I try and do the whole thing across both of them. But as far as singing goes, when I first have somebody who I know has danced a lot, the first thing I will ask them is, how do you feel about singing? And 9 times out of 10, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And so we have a conversation about that. What is it what is it that they don't want to do? Is it scary? Do they not like it? And you generally get the same answers. I mean, not everybody does. I had one girl came in and I said, how do you feel about singing? She said, well, I quite like it, she said, but I can't see I'm ever going to make a career out of it. So I asked her what she'd like to be. She said either a dancer or an astrophysicist, I think it was.
And then she sang, and I was like, okay, because she had an amazing voice, and I was like, you sing really well. She's like, do I? But it's that whole thing again. So it's really trying to make them comfortable. Quite often in their first singing lesson, we don't ever do any singing. You know, their first vocal coaching session with me, we may not even sing. Or I will get them to sing something that they like, and I will allow them to sing it along with the person. And I do quite a lot of that with them, even as we go through when they're learning a song. They take comfort in having a voice there that they can hide behind until they feel a little bit more comfortable with it. And I think the other thing I do is I do try and sort of compare things in dance to singing. This is how I first, introduce warm-ups and things to them. And like I say, when they say to me, I can't do this, and I'll go to them, I'll say to them, can you do a triple pirouette? And then, yeah. Well, could you do a triple pirouette when you first danced? And they're like, no, of course I could, and I was 5. And I'm like, well, why would you be able to do the vocal equivalent of a triple pirouette now when you've never done any singing? And I think sometimes it's just giving them that comfort that they're not a failure because they can't sing like, I don't know who's a popular singer at the moment. I'm still in the 80s, so I can't even who's a popular singer at the moment. I don't know, Pink. I know that she's kind of current, Harry Styles for the boys. I don't know. I have no idea.
So it's about kind of lowering their expectations somewhat and helping them to see the process.
Yeah, so that they realise, like anything else, they've got to take the steps. And I do think that leading them towards, as I've been doing with the acceptance and commitment coaching, towards this values way of setting goals. And so with the values, instead of you having a goal and that being your ultimate thing, you basically have a value which could be to be more prepared. That could be one, or to improve my vocal technique, or to improve my musicality. That's quite a good one. To improve my musicality and my acting through song. They'd be 2 separate ones. And then we work out, okay, so what can we do next to do that? But the nice thing is that would be their goal. So if you view the value as the direction you're going in, that you never actually get there, and your goal are your little sightseeing stops along the way. I love that metaphor. So, we stop in at this place and we might actually manage to do what that actual goal is, but we may not. But as long as it takes us somewhere towards our value, then that's fine. I mean, if they said to me, I want to improve my acting through song, and then this one day they said, okay, so today I want to make sure I do 4 gestures or something like. I'm generally not that prescriptive with them, but I want to do 4 gestures today, but they'd only done 3. It will be like, okay, you didn't do your 4, but you did 3. Did we work to what you've done? And they'd be like, yeah. Well, then we're going in the right direction. I think that seems to have been working quite well. But it's all about being realistic and them not. I mean. You get them and they'll come in and I'll say to them, okay, I'll find us a song to sing, and would you like to find a song to sing? Well, I get 2 camps with this one. I either get, I don't listen to music, which is always a pain, or I get, oh yes, I'd like to sing the end of Defying Gravity. It's like, well, we might need to work up to that one. Seriously, I had that about 3 weeks ago. So we might need to work up to that one, okay? So how about, we can maybe start with the beginning of Defying Gravity if you really want to do it, but, we're not going to be doing that anytime tomorrow. But I do tend to say to them, you're wanting to do 32 fouettes on point, and you've had 3 vocal coaching sessions. So, if we take small steps.
I think that's great how you can use that analogy to dance like that. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, though, I was going to say there, do you think that there's a misunderstanding of the voice then that makes them have these beliefs that, like it's a muscle that can be trained? I
think that part of the problem is they see things on telly, don't they? They see these reality shows and they see TikTok and they see this, that and the other. And we are always taught, no, we're not. But to me, there seems to be this expectation that everybody can sing like that immediately. And it's not the same in dance. People seem to be far more, think that dance is some amazing thing. And to me, it's no different. You know, it's still a skill that you've got to work at. You've got to you've got to, I'll see if I can get this the right way around. I always get it the wrong way around. You have to learn to walk before you can run. But I think, you know, there's this expectation, oh, well, so-and-so was on The Voice and they were amazing. Yeah, but you don't know how long they've been doing it behind the scenes. And I think another problem I quite often come up against is people wanting to sing things that are just... They're not going to be ready for them, even if they were a great singer, because they're 10, you know?
Yeah.
And they want to sing some... I mean, my voice is... I would say my voice was probably at its best in my early 40s. We're in a downward trajectory now. But I still have a lot more control over it now than I had back then. I mean, when I was 16, I could belt. That was what I did. That was my thing. I knew... And I knew how to do that and nothing else. And they don't seem to understand that, you know, if you're wanting to sing something by, well, even if you go like Idina Menzel, I mean, you've got to think when she did Let It Go, she was in her 40s. So, and yes, I know there are people that can do it, but I don't expect my little 10-year-old that's had 3 vocal coaching sessions is going to be able to sing Let It Go.
No.
So, and I'd rather, I think another thing as well is that quite often for dance competitions, when they do their song and dances or their vocals, they're given material which is that I don't necessarily think is appropriate. I might be a bit square there, but, you know, I don't like a 12-year-old singing something from Heather's. Or,
No.
Sorry, that's not against you, Heather. You know?
No, I wouldn't want a 12-year-old singing something from Heather's either.
No. And, you know, when I want to give them something more age appropriate, and they're like, but that's so babyish. I'm like, well, you're going to sing it. And once you've sorted that out, in a couple of years' time, then we can try something from Heather's.
Do you know, I'm totally with you on that one. It's a big bugbear of mine having children sing songs that they can't relate to and are far more adult than they are ready for.
I mean, you know, I've been adjudicating competitions, and there's been a girl singing She Used to Be Mine, and she's like 11, and I'm like, how can you sing that?
No.
And
realistically, I tend to encourage musical theatre singers in general to sing the sort of songs that they would be cast to sing.
Yeah.
And a 12-year-old would not be cast in an adult role. A 12-year-old would be cast as a 12-year-old, possibly a little bit younger if they can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they should really be aiming to sing the songs that would be an 8-year-old in the show.
Yeah. I mean, when I was 19, I should have probably been doing the 12-year-old songs because I only looked about 12, but... You know,
brilliant. That always goes in your favour in that industry.
Yes, it does. So I've digressed again, haven't I?
That's quite all right. We're good at that.
Please cut anything out when I've gone off on one of my rants.
So in terms of kind of like, so a lot of our listeners might be working with older adults that are also dancers. So, for example, I often get on the run-up to auditions for Panto season, dancers coming through the doors expecting to have their Panto audition song together in one lesson. You know, like you do.
As you do.
Because suddenly their agent has thrown it on them that this isn't just a dance audition, they have to sing something as well. So if we've got an adult dancer coming in for a lesson, should we expect the same sort of attitude towards singing that you're describing in these adolescents, or do you think that changes as they age?
I don't think it changes. There's going to be exceptions, but knowing what my personal journey is, I know that I'm still, in fact, I'm probably harder on myself than I was back then. And I think with people, you've then got they're kicking themselves because why didn't I think of this 10 years earlier? And I think, again, it's a whole thing about making them comfortable. What I tended to find when I was dealing in Italy with the kids that were about 17, no, they'd be coming up for 19 because they leave school at 19, was that one of the easiest ways that I found to do it was actually to work on the whole acting through song, you know, the intention of the song as much as anything else. Because sometimes if they can hear you've got a voice, but there's nothing here, you know, they're just going to go, okay. Whereas if they can see if you've got a voice and they can see that you understand the song and stuff like that, then you might stand more of a chance. But you see what I would say now is, this is why when they're little, this is why they need to do their singing lessons, isn't it? And their vocal coaching lessons, so that when they get to that point, Heather, then they've got a basis of what they're doing, and it needs to be seen as part of their ongoing training. That if you want to be doing, I'd even forgotten about pantomimes. You see, I did pantomimes when I was a kid. I had a great time doing pantomimes, but we always had to sing. You know, if you do review shows, if you work on cruise ships, you know, or if, you know, there's so much that you need to be able to sing for as a dancer, and it does limit. So, but I would say the main thing is they need to try and start feeling more comfortable with it. But once you're an adult, that's so much harder, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Maybe to sing for fun. You know, go in, you know, if they're not that comfortable, to get themselves feeling more comfortable, why not join a choir or something, you know, to get, and maybe once they've done that, they might, I don't know. To be honest, I don't work that much with adults. So you would probably know better than me, Heather, with that one.
Well, I only say it because I do recognise some of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I do see it, that frustration in of themselves.
Yeah.
When they can't be perfect at a very high level immediately.
And I think it's just a case of saying, look, you're not going to be. You know, you've been dancing for all these years. This is all the stuff that you've done. This is where we are with singing, just because you've never done it. That's like saying, would you say, oh, I can't ice skate? You might. You go, oh, well, I can't ice skate because I've never done it. You know, I can't ice skate. I can roller skate, obviously, but I can't ice skate because I think I'm on roller skates and almost do the splits. But I'm like, you know, you go to push off and go, ooh, off we go. But it is that thing, isn't it? You'd qualify it. You'd say, I can't ice skate. I've never done it. They don't say, I can't sing. I've never done it. I mean, everybody's sung when they're a child. Well, most people have at school. But it is that actual learning it as a skill.
So, I mean, do you think that dance schools, as a general rule, should make all of their dancers partake in some kind of a singing, like, group class or something?
I think anybody who even remotely thinks that they're going to want to do it for, you know, that they're going to want to go on to vocational college and do it, yes, I do. If they're not, if they're just, you know, little Betty that comes in once a week and she does her ballet and her tap class, and she's never going to want to do anything with it. No, though in saying that, you know, I have my little musical theatre class, and most of them, I would say, would not be interested in doing it. We have a fabulous time, you know, doing something a bit different. They can be expressive in a different way. But I do think that anybody who has even the remotest thought that they might want to do it as a career, or even just as, because I know there are kids that go off to sixth form and that, but, you know, yes, I would say if they have any thoughts of wanting to do it, yes, you need to sing.
And is there an ideal age for them to be making that decision?
Well, probably not. I just really think that all kids should sing. I really do, to be quite honest with you. You know, I have my little mini movies class on a Friday, and before I got there, they did ballet. They now do ballet and singing. You know, we do a bit of, because it's nice to normalise them doing it. So that for me. I feel quite passionately about this, as you can tell.
Absolutely.
It's strange that we have such preconceived ideas about singing, isn't it? But
Oh, I
like
know.
you say about ice skating, it's weird. And I wonder where that comes from in society, what it is that causes that.
I do think there's just this idea, isn't there, that everybody can sing. And I know that everybody can sing, but you're not going to be able to, or very few people will be able to sing to a professional level without some kind of training. And unfortunately, the reality is that once you go to one of these vocational schools, most of the schools that my students will go to, there isn't that much singing. You know, they might have 36 contact hours a week and maybe 2 of those are singing. And that's the reality. They're still, on the whole, very, very dance-centric. So then we're asking them to come out again and be able to sing. I know off the top of my head, I know 3 people that have been to vocational school, and now 2 of them have done loads of work in the West End. The other is a very respected vocal coach. And when they came out of college, they'd had very little training. And they actually then went and paid for their own singing training. But they wouldn't be doing what they did now. And they're all amazing singers. But because they were dancers, they didn't really do it that much at college.
So then this is something that is not just an issue for that kind of pre-18-year-old kind of dance school.
No,
this
it's
is an
ongoing.
issue for your professional training dance schools as well.
Yeah, it is. And I think as well, I do think you need to understand a dancer's psyche. I really do, because we're strange creatures. And and as I said, you know, yes, I'm more of a singer, but in my mind, my mind is very, very firmly a dancer. And anybody, I think, oh no, I can't say anybody, I would think you would find, and I'm saying this is my own anecdotal evidence, you know, from talking to my colleagues and the kids I have taught. You can sing as well. You could have played the lead in 10 West End musicals as a singer, but in your mind, you're a dancer. There are very few, I think, that go through that start the way that I did, and you would say they've got a singer's mentality, which is a far more balanced one than a dancer's, let me tell you. From the people I know, anyway.
Well, that's so interesting, because singers can have all sorts of weird things going on inside of their heads as well.
I mean, I may be probably I'm overgeneralising here, but, you know, they all seem a lot more balanced and more confident, daft as it sounds. A dancer will always beat themselves up. Our first thought is, I can't do it. I still do it now.
And is there a solution to that? Can that change ever? Or
it's just, I think it can be, but it does go right back to getting the right kind of environment, you know, bringing in more of this mastery oriented teaching environment where, you know, perseverance and progress is championed above talent. Don't get me wrong, I know that in the real world people get stuff because they're talented, but I love that old adage that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. And it is absolutely true. You can be the most talented person on the earth, but if you don't work to develop that, at some point there's someone that's slugging their guts out behind you will probably come up and take your place, because you can't, you know, you can only fake it for so long, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
That's a fabulous quote. And I had to write that down on a
It
I was
post-it.
just going to say, Tom was
It's
totally
not my
writing that one down.
it's not my quote, I can tell you. I have a couple. That's one, and my other favourite is a comfort zone is a lovely place to be, but nothing ever grows there. And that's one I use. I use that one at the moment a heck of a lot with the dancers. You are really comfortable there in your little dance world. But if you want your singing to develop, you're going to have to come out of your comfort zone, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it. The dancer would think unfortunately, but...
Oh, it's fab.
Yeah,
Well,
it's strange thing, isn't it?
Can I just say one thing, actually? I just suddenly remembered.
Yeah.
You know, when I was saying about understanding the dancer's psyche, I was listening to a podcast where there was... She used to be a dancer with the Royal Ballet. She was Jamie Tapper. And she retrained as a psychotherapist. And she's done, on this podcast, she was talking about the work she'd done with the Canadian, I want to say the Royal Canadian Ballet School, but I could be wrong. I do apologise because I've probably got that wrong. And she had done acceptance and commitment therapy with them, which is the one which is led by a therapist. And she said that when she started doing this, she had to go off and research perfectionism because it was absolutely vital that she understood it because of the dancers she was working with. So, you know, the perfectionism thing is something that even for somebody who danced, she had to go and find that because she said how important it was to understand where the dancers were coming from. So please, everybody, understand a dancer's psyche.
That's it. We're off to figure that out
Yes.
now. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Helen, for joining us today and sharing some really fascinating insights. We're definitely going to go away and think very hard about how we approach it the next time we have a dancer come through our doors needing some help with their singing.
If you could learn a few ballet terms, it might
I was going to say, I'm going to go and swat up on all of those French terms that you said.
Write a book, vocabulary that singing teachers and
I
vocal
think you
coaches need for
should.
teaching dancers, and my
That would be
analogies
amazing.
and metaphors.
I love it.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you.
So yes, as we promised, that was a very interesting conversation, and
Wasn't
we
it
could probably
just?
chatted for like another hour and
I
about
know.
stuff. It's hard to keep it into like such a short space.
I know. And when we first started this podcast, we were all like, yeah, we'll try and keep the episodes like half an hour. Now I'm like, an hour's fine. Because when you once you get started in something, if you're anything like me, you get really nosy and you want to know more.
I know. You do, and then like you just don't know what tangent you're going to go off into. It's really interesting. So it's hard to kind of stop mid interesting thing because we're at time.
That's it. But yeah, really, really interesting conversation. And like I say, you know, I'm sure if you've ever taught somebody who is a dancer first and a singer second, you're bound to recognise some of those behaviours that Helen was talking about.
Yeah, and like I don't know about you, but like I feel like we hear similar stories from like people coming in for lessons with our guests, where it's like, oh, I've got an audition tomorrow, or oh, I'm doing this tomorrow, like, and I need the song to be ready, and it's their first singing lesson, like that. That feels like more and more of a common theme that I hear from more and more people nowadays, and. Like we asked, you know, the question, like, do people have this misconception about the voice and how the voice trains because they think that, you know, they just don't treat it the same as like learning to play tennis, learning to dance, learning to golf. Like, I don't understand why we have that misconception.
We have a very fixed mindset when it comes to singing, you know, people do lack that growth mindset that is required to understand that this is a skill that can be built and developed and learnt. We think you either have it or you don't, and that you're born that way, and that's that.
Which is weird. Like, you know, I took piano lessons. I started piano lessons when I was 10. I didn't expect to be Chopin at the end of my first lesson. Like, you understand there's a learning curve and it takes time and you work through grades and exams and then you become a good piano player. But, like, in my brain at that age, I was like, oh, no, can't sing. I wasn't born with it. So it's not for me, so I'm going to dance instead. And, like, it's just weird that we just have this weird limitation that we seem to have, like, because you see, you know, she was talking about it in kids, young kids that have this limitation. It's like, where does that come from? Like,
I know.
Is it society holding them to strange standards? Is it what they're seeing on the internet? You know, is TikTok and YouTube limiting their beliefs about what singing is?
And I wonder how much it kind of filters through. Like, if you're in a dance school atmosphere and you see the 16-year-old dancers all going, oh no, we just dance, we don't sing. Do the 10-year-olds look at that and go, oh yeah, no, I'm a dancer, so I mustn't sing either? It's weird kind of, is that just part of the general belief system of that dance school world?
Yeah, because it is a strange world. I have, like you, have had students that have either been in it or were going into it, and like it's strange hearing the stories of how things operate and how people think about certain things and how they work. And just I as somebody that wasn't in that kind of world, it was hard to understand. Like, well, why do they think like that? Like, why do you need to do 12 hours of tap, but you get like 20-minute singing lesson, but now you've got to go and sing like a 3-hour show that you don't tap dancing?
It doesn't make any sense, does it? You're right.
No. And but that's common. I mean, at least in my experience of working with these students, that's a common thread. You get very little singing and are expected to work in it basically on your own.
Yeah, and realistically, like we were saying, employability relies on it. You can be the world's most amazing dancer, but there's no guarantee that you will book the job that requires you just to dance. So if you're able to show up and audition for the jobs that require you to do a bit of singing as well as dancing, you just double your opportunities, if not treble them, in terms of whether you can get work as a professional dancer. So I feel like it should just be like essential. It should just be written into the rules. If you're going to dance, you should also learn to sing.
I think as well, because so many casts these days that, like there's spiraling costs and so many other different things that they have to do for productions. And so they don't have the luxury of being able to have just dancers and just singers. And like they need to cut the costs of casting by having multi-talented, triple threats, as they call them.
Absolutely. And so long as they're out there, they're going to book the job before the people who aren't the triple threat, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly. And one thing that came up, because during that we were talking about, like, does social media and that contribute to it? And like, Helen was talking about how people see things and just think, oh, I need to be that good instantly. And that's something that kind of resonated, because I had been watching, as you know, you get stuck in a YouTube loop and you start seeing all this random stuff. And as soon as you stop and watch something, then it starts to show you more of that thing. So I started watching this guy's videos of him singing. And like in his thing is he sits in the car and bangs on the center console to like percussive, whatever you want. And like I was listening to him, I was like, oh wow, this guy's got some chops on him, good singer, good intonation, etc. And the more I listened to him, the more I was like, this starts to sound very produced, like this has been put through some audio. And then I was like, oh, and there's a bit of autotune there. And then they started posting a video with like two other singers doing like duets and these harmonies were so beautifully tightly blended. And I was like, that's all post-production. Like, that's not the live audio from the video. And I was like, that's very misleading.
Smoke and mirrors.
But people watch that and they're like, oh my God, I can never sing like that. I am not a singer. Like, and they take that and that puts a limiting belief in their head because they think, oh, I should be able to sing like that naturally.
That's so interesting. I mean, and that is the equivalent of young girls looking at beauty magazines and seeing pictures of these women who have been airbrushed into shapes that don't exist in the real world and going, I'm terrible because I don't look like that.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And like, when you go down that rabbit hole, like you start to if you look at social media and stuff that's on it, like you start to, oh, that's a beauty video, but there's a filter on the video. And like, not just like influencers, like big beauty companies do it.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're watching singing on the internet, you've got to take it with a big pinch of salt when you're watching these things, because there's so much stuff. I mean, even like, TV shows, when they put stuff out, it's dubbed and it's tuned and, tweaked.
It's not
and
quite the full story.
Yeah, and I have seen a couple of videos where it's like somebody's got their phone in their pocket sneaking a recording of like somebody that's made it quite far, but they get taken down very quickly. But it's nothing like what the actual official video sounds like. It just creates false standards, doesn't it?
It's naughty, isn't it?
But it creates that false standard.
You're right, it does. It makes you believe that's an achievable thing to do, is just to, just belt something out and be perfect first time. Whereas we all know that perfection doesn't really exist. I mean, there is no perfect. Like, we can always pick holes in our our own performances in particular.
yeah.
We're always our own worst critics. So we know that perfection doesn't really exist. And so aiming for that perfection is a really dangerous thing.
I agree. And I always like to think, and this always sticks in my head, is like when, like Beyonce, people just think Beyonce just, was born and could sing like that. And I'm like, well, I've read and seen videos where she talks about the summer camps that her dad used to put on, where they used to work like 12 hours a day, like running on treadmills while singing. And like that woman worked so hard to get to where she was and still works so hard. And, she just doesn't, it just doesn't fall out her mouth. Like she's had to work her whole life to get to the level that she's at. And that, but people don't see that. They just think,
I know,
it's
it's a
perfection.
shame, isn't it? Because it almost undermines the amount of work that has gone into it when they say, oh, she's just born that way. Like, no, worked goddamn hard to get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, clearly she's born with some kind of genetics that gave her a little bit of a upper hand there, but
It helps,
it's hard
but it's
work.
not everything.
Exactly. And
What was the quote that Helen said? You wrote
I
it
got
down,
it on my
didn't you?
post-it. I did, yeah. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's so true. So true. You can be the best of the best, but if you don't practice, somebody else that does will come along.
We'll take over. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
And it's like
right.
that quote, other thing that comes into my head, like, what is it? Practice makes perfect. And then in IVA, we tried to talk about practice makes permanent. We tried to move away from this idea that practice makes perfect because there is no perfect.
Because there is no perfect. The sooner we acknowledge that, the better. And that's why, actually, when Helen was talking about excellence rather than perfection, it's a great, way to think of it. Like, it's great to strive to be excellent at something, but don't strive to be perfect at it because that's an unrealistic expectation for yourself.
Yeah, I really loved that twist of it. And even how she phrased it, like, you set a goal and then you reach it. Oh, well, it clearly wasn't good enough or high enough standard. And you beat yourself down. And the whole idea of this, like, maladaptive perfectionism, where she was saying, we basically procrastinate. We put it off. She mentioned something that she hadn't done because she'd been procrastinating it. And, like, I was sitting there thinking, it's so true. Like, I've done tasks in the past for, like, singing stuff, for, like, preparing a song for a lesson, and I've put it off because I just in the back of my head, like, not good enough. And then you do it and you're like, oh, is that it? Like, have I been, like, crapping myself about that?
For something that you didn't need to be worried about.
But you just get stuck in your head and you tell yourself all these things that are not true.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting what she was talking about. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to go away and review my post-it notes of all the things I wrote.
all the little things you've written down. I love it.
Yeah, like, do that. That's me.
So I don't think we know who our next guest is yet, do we, Tom, for our next podcast? No, we don't.
No,
So you'll have to stay tuned and be surprised by whoever turns up on.
I know.
It might be me yabbering on about gestures, or we might get someone more interesting. We'll see.
You're very interesting.
But how do people make sure that they don't miss whatever gems are coming up on the podcast, Tom?
Yeah, so you got to make sure wherever you're listening to this that you click the subscribe or you click the follow button, whatever it says, so that you get notified when the episode comes out. If you're on social media, we post when our podcasts are being released, and we're also on YouTube as well, where we put the videos of these shenanigans. As you
can see us in the
Indeed.
flesh.
I know. It makes the experience all the more interesting.
I love it.
Or not.
And if people want to find out more about the Institute for Vocal Advancement, the teacher training opportunities, and anything else that's going on, what's the best way to find out about that, Tom?
Well, I think the best thing to do is get to our website, vocaladvancement.com, and there's various things on there. Like, we have a section of all the events that are coming up, all our webinars with our speakers. We have a section about all the training that we do. So yeah, you can find that on our website, or if you prefer, you can get on our email list, and we send out notifications when new stuff comes up. Our new events are announced as well. So yeah, we have something for everyone for their preferred method of consuming information. We're trying to be everywhere, everything, all at once.
Love it. You'll never get rid of us because we're everywhere.
I know, you're stuck with us. Yeah.
And on that note,
Bye-bye.
we'll leave you to it because you've probably had enough of us by now.
I know. I just think of somebody sitting in their car driving along thinking, okay, like, you must be done now.
We are, I promise. That's it. That's it. We will.
So,
We'll see you next time.
yeah, take care.